Hey, welcome back to week 2 of our series, The Great Adventure. We've been taking some time as a congregation to crack into what Scripture says about marriage. I'm here with my wife, Kaylee, and we've been really having a lot of fun talking about how God's worked in our marriage and what we've learned about what Scripture says, and hopefully being a help to you guys as you study this in your groups, at home, on your app, wherever it is that's happening. And so last week, we talked about how wives are called to love their husbands, right?
Yep.
And I think one of the reasons that Scripture is so powerful when it lays out the design of marriage is it helps us move back some of the fear of what it looks like to love our spouse. And what I mean by that is the question that almost always gets asked when we call someone to love someone else is, well, what about me?
Right.
Well, if I submit to my husband, then what about my needs? Is it just all about him? And what we see this week is it's actually not true. In a healthy marriage, in God's design for marriage, the question that we ask is never, what about me? It's always, how do I love the other person?
Yes.
And that's designed to be a two-way street. So nothing about a biblical model of marriage is designed to be about the man being served and the man being the center of attention and the man getting. If anything, biblical marriage is really designed to be about the man ultimately being sacrificial in his love for the woman. And we learned that when we look at what it means for the man to love his wife as Christ loved the church. So Christ loved the church, he died for the church, right? So there's a sacrificial idea of Christ's leadership, and that's really what men are called to do, is they're called to be sacrificial in how they love their wives. And that's a safe place to submit because it's this idea of mutual submission. It's not this idea of a power struggle.
Right.
And so for us, I know that as we look at our marriage and what that's looked like for us, I guess the question I have for you is, how have you seen and felt loved as we've gone through our marriage sacrificially? And I would even say, maybe how has that gotten better over time? Because it's not like we got married day one and things were perfect. Like, our first year wasn't very easy. And so...
Right. I don't think anyone's is, because you're kind of learning how to live with someone else and what they need from you. Everybody is different.
Yeah.
So I think with us, you kind of learned, like, when we have arguments, that I need space to process.
Yeah. Yeah, because I genuinely want to deal with it right now. Like, let's just confront it and deal it right now.
Let's get the cards out on the table right now and talk about it. And I just want to go nasty right away. And so you learn to back off and give me some air so I can have a reasonable conversation later. Let's see, things like that I find helpful, like my love languages as we've had children, helping around the house has been something that is valuable to me and makes me feel like I am valued in our marriage.
And I think for me, one big part of that was learning that you felt loved by what mattered to you, not what mattered to me.
Right.
And so for me, I'm not necessarily, like a lot of guys, maybe a cleaning details person. I am neat, and I do like things clean. But I was an only child, so I was never the one that actually had to get them that way. They just existed in a world where they magically were cleaned by someone else.
Well, your mom likes it.
And so for me, it was something that I didn't necessarily think about doing a lot, and it wasn't that big a deal to me. And so I didn't understand why you didn't feel loved. She'd be like, oh, but I brought you flowers, or I bought you jewelry, or which is interesting because you like to give gifts, but receiving them isn't necessarily as important to you as the acts of service are, where you see me taking care of things like picking a towel up off the bathroom floor, or I think taking out the trash, or
getting the kids ready for bed. Taking some stuff off my plate is always helpful, so that I have more time just to relax and enjoy
and that hasn't always meant, I don't think, that we have this traditional gender role where it's it's the woman's housework or the man's housework. That's an area that I think we share pretty well.
Right. I think for us, it's a partnership, and like we all live here, and everybody has stuff to do, and sometimes it's nice to take a little extra.
Yeah, and so I think what's really important is we talk about the man sacrificially loving the wife, is that doesn't have to look like a Hallmark card or a 1950s commercial, like give the little wife a blender. Like, I don't think that's what that has to be. You know what I mean? And so I think within that, what we've learned is that to sacrificially love your spouse well, whether you're the man or the woman, you really have to take time to know and understand your spouse.
Right.
Right, because it's just different. Like, we were joking the other day, Ethan asked where Dad's tools were, and you're like, give me Mom's tools. Because frankly, like, you know more about like household repairs than I do. And
Yeah.
so it's like an architecture degree and just a lot of other inclinations that I don't really have. It's very scary when I start like trying to do anything with a screwdriver. And so maybe that's not like a traditional gender role, but that's not what it means to sacrificially love your wife. What it means is to put her needs first and make sure that her needs are being met. And so for us, I think one of the difficulties was me assuming that your needs are what I thought they should be.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
or what I wanted them to do, what I would rather do. You
Yeah.
know, because it's easier to buy something than, clean the toilet.
Yes.
And so I know in our house that's been really played out, I think, a lot of cool ways because it's been me taking the time to know and understand what you need. And I think what's been helpful for us as a couple is we communicate a little more effectively about that than maybe we did when we were first
Just a little.
married. And so I think that I think we've come a long way just even understanding how to have those conversations about, hey, just tell me what you need right now.
Yeah.
And taking the time to ask instead of assume and just be like, what's the problem? I did this. Why aren't you happy right now? I did this thing that you should feel cared about because I cared
Yes.
about you when I'm trying to think about, there's been times that you definitely like gifts I've given you, but sometimes it's not that big a deal to you.
Yeah, I'm not really a flowers girl.
Yeah.
I'd really rather you clean the kitchen.
Yeah, and that's not bad, And so a lot of it is just, guys, do we take the time to understand what really makes our wife tick, or do we just want them to get in line so our lives are easy, right? And so you can try to do that. You can try to just get in line and make my life easy, but it's not going to be effective because at the end of the day, that's about you. And we're not called to get married so our wives can meet our needs. We're really called to get married so we can sacrificially love one another. And what that means is dying to yourself. And I know for us, maybe one of the practical ways that plays out in terms of just compromise in loving one another, that might seem small, but I think it matters, is we're a one TV house.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the only way to do it. I don't think that makes us holier. It's just for us who say, hey, we're just gonna have one television. We're going to try to cut down on screen time so people are engaging and interacting. So what that means is if there's something on that one of us wants to watch, it kind of puts the onus on the other one to be willing to sacrifice. Like if the Bruins are on, you're very willing to say, let's watch the game. If there's a murder show on, it makes me nervous when you're taking notes, like on how, but when there's a murder show on, then the onus is on me to say, I don't need to watch that game. This is something, so even little ways that aren't necessarily extravagant or expensive or complicated, you just find these arenas on how you can yield to the other person, right? And
Right.
so for me, what that's looked like is, this is a stolen concept, but like I try to say yes to you as much as I can so that when I have to say no, it's less about control and more about me saying, hey, I really have a conviction about, I even think about like we just got a roof redone.
Yes.
Jimmy, if you guys are watching this, thank you. It was amazing. We don't get a discount for that. I just really appreciate them. And so one of the ways that we kind of compromised on that is you had aesthetically.
I wanted the most expensive
Right, yeah.
shingle.
But aesthetically, you're very gifted now. Like you said, you have an architecture degree and a design, just bent.
Yeah.
And so you're gifted in those areas. And you said, this is the one I think would look the best. And I said, man, when I look at our budget, what if we went for the middle one? And it's really rare that I say, like, no, let's not do that.
Well, you said if it were on you that we would go with the cheapest.
Right, yeah, which we would, because I just don't see detail that well. And
So the compromise was
it kind of let's
the
land in the
middle
middle.
one.
Yeah. And I think we both walked away feeling good about that. And
Yeah.
so I think for guys, as we walk into this, listen, you can go in and try to dominate your wife or say it's my way or the highway. It's just what you're going to find is one, that doesn't honor the Lord because you're not honoring your wife. But two, just from a practical standpoint, it doesn't work because you're not ultimately meeting needs. You're making marriage about getting your way. And anytime marriage devolves into who wins and who doesn't, everyone suffers. Your family suffers, your community suffers, and your church suffers. So guys, what I want us to talk about today is how do we sacrificially love our wife? What do we need to die to? What do we need to give up? What do we need to do to be dialed into what she needs from us? And so as you guys talk about that, if you guys are in a group where people are married, again, let's give each other space and grace. Let's have this not be a small group session where there's the elbows like, yeah, that's right. Why don't you do that? That's not going to go well for you either. And so let's engage these conversations in a way that's safe to be vulnerable. Okay, I hope you guys have a great week. And we will talk to you next week with some very special guests I'm very excited for you guys to hear from. All right, see you then.